Yo, hello guys. So this is the African Traveler, and today I have an interesting topic about Africa, and my topic is why Africa is the future. So probably you left the continent long time ago. Probably you're out there in the continent, or you're inside Africa, and you're asking yourself, should I invest in the continent? Is there hope? I understand your frustration because most times you'll find bad news coming from the continent. Most of the time you'll actually hear bad news from the continent more than the good news, and I don't blame that because people love bad news better than more than the good news, So most of the time, bad news sells better than the good news, and people tend to focus more on the bad than the good. And that is why Africa has been tainted for a long time, because we don't safeguard or protect what is ours. No, we don't protect the bad news, like most countries will do. I can tell you for sure it's not the same case in countries like Gulf. It's not the same countries like China. It's not the same case in the West. They'll always want you guys to hear the good news. And in Africa, we forget to filter. And every time you open the TV, you either hear hunger, from Africa. You either hear diseases, things like Ebola from Africa. You either hear things like civil war in different countries, and so many other things that keep being spread from Africa. And we tend to overlook the positive. And I want to share to you the key points that I said, 5 key points of why Africa is the future. And let me just mention some of the good things that have been coming from Africa, but they have not gotten the highlight that they deserve. Like in 2018, in 2018, 10 fastest growing economies in the world. Among the 10, Africa had 6, and it's not a joke. That's a big thing, We had countries like Ghana, Ethiopia, Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal, Tanzania, Djibouti, all among the top 10 fastest growing economies in the world in 2018. And over the years, Africa has been the fastest growing continent in general in the world. We cannot also forget in countries like Rwanda, whereby we had women representative of 60% in the parliament. That has never occurred or happened anywhere in the world. And we're getting these to hear also countries like Ethiopia having the first female president in Africa. And more things that are coming from the continent. We cannot forget the vibrant youth that are coming up with technology to solve the African problems. And that is where transformation will come. If we keep getting technology from outside to help us, it will not do as much transformation as if it comes from ourselves. That is one thing I want Africans to know. The reason why China is where it is because they found and discovered that they have to find their own solution for themselves. And that is what China is today. And so many other countries, the same situation. So my number 1 point would be improved infrastructure in the continent. Accessibility in the continent 2 or 3 years ago, from countries to countries, was really bad. And in the last 2 decades, there's been major improvement in connectivity across the countries and between borders. We've seen huge investment in roads, huge investment in rail and bridges, and this in turn has connected businesses from different city to city and from country to country, and this has really increased the connectivity between Africa, and in turn improved the living standard of so many people. I can tell you, improved in infrastructure really improved the living standard of the people. And that is number 1 point. We've seen railways, Chinese railways and roads all over Africa, and I'm sure some of you are asking, yes, Africa is growing, but is so much dependent on the Chinese. What I will say is So I'm sure some of you are asking, yes, there are so many changes in the continent in terms of infrastructure, but there's a lot of influence and support from the Chinese government. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but ask yourself, would Africa prefer to remain in the dark ages, or would it prefer to get support from other people and grow? Yeah, that is not something I'll answer to. So my second point would be vibrant African youth population. Africa is the youngest continent in the world, whereby we have 60% of the population as youth, and so many continents are aging. I don't want to mention continents, but Africa, we still have huge youth population. In some countries like Uganda, you have 77% of the population being youth. You can imagine. And this youth is not just, is very aggressive, is tech savvy, and more and more youth are coming with very great ideas of transforming the continent. The youth that we have in the continent, they are very, very industrious. We have had them discover so many things that are bringing so many solutions to the African continent. And that is one thing that Africa should pride itself for, the youth population. And as I mentioned, if I'm talking about the future, if you cannot talk a future for the old, you can only talk a future for the young, because that is where the world is going. So yeah, if you want to come and invest in Africa, just know you're investing in a continent whereby in the next 20-30 years, people will still be around to use or consume what you started at this age. My third point would be economic reforms in the continent, or ease of doing business. And this differs from country to country. So there's so many reforms being done by different countries in the continent to improve on ease of setting up a business for anyone, be it local, be it a multinational, be it an expatriate, be it a foreigner. So in a country like Rwanda, I will give you, for example, you can register, start a business within one day. That is how easy it is. And I would commend also Kenya for that. Kenya from around 2014 improved from, in the ease of doing business. This is World Bank ease of doing business. Kenya came from position 129 in the world to around 56 last year. And that is a huge improvement. This is a comparison between 190 countries in the world, and you've managed to move from position 129 to position 56 in less than a decade. So there are so many reforms, and I can tell you this is across Africa and so many countries that are really trying to encourage people to come and invest in the continent. And most of the time, these things don't get outside there as they should. And that is why I'm telling you, if you're planning to invest in the continent, this is the time. My fourth point, regional integration or trading blocks. Over the last few years, we've seen a lot of this integration across the world, across the continent. ECOWAS really pushing for serious, proper integration. We need to have one single currency. We need to just have borderless, region. And that is the same thing you hear about SADC, the same thing you hear about East African region. And with this, you increase the capacity, and you encourage more investors to come in, especially the bigger investors, in a way that, if let's say Kenya has around a population of 47 million people or 50 million people, if I want to come and manufacture to Kenya alone, the return on investment, if it's a big investment, does not make sense. But having a regional integration, like in East and Central Africa, we have something called COMESA, Common Market of East and Central Africa, where you have around 400 million, we have over 400 million people. It's easier to target more people. It's easier to attract bigger companies to come and invest. And the more and more Africa integrates and we put the whole continent to become borderless, is when we'll have crazy investors, we'll have big investors, And the continent will really transform, because every investor will always think, I'm going to target like 1 billion people. Africa has over 1 billion people, and that is I believe should be the goal of the African Union, just to have the borderless Africa, where people can easily move from point A to point B, where people can manufacture goods from point A and deliver to point B without any issue. And with the increase in regional integration across the continent, will make a better future for the continent. And no matter how long our politicians will delay this, but that is one key point that politicians should know, is what will transform the continent: regional integration. And we need it ASAP. We need common currency across Africa. We need easy movement from point A to point B. I can move from Kenya to, let's say, Senegal without any issue. You can drive. Yeah. And also regional integration has also been improved with the infrastructure, as my first point. Kenya connecting with Ethiopia, Nigeria connecting with its neighbors, Ghana connecting with its neighbors, Burundi, same, infrastructure and regional integration go hand in hand. My last point is urbanization. Over the years, there's a huge increase in urbanization in Africa. People moving from rural areas to urban centers, and we've seen urban centers just exploding. Industries coming up, population going to the city, despite the fact that we know some of the problems that comes with this. And the good thing about urbanization is that it increases consumption for a country. When you're in the villages, you don't buy a lot. When you go to the cities, the consumption goes up, and that is why you will see that in cities, as much as you get a lot of pay, good pay, you'll still see that it's really hard to sustain. Sustainability is very hard, because you have to buy everything. And most countries have really progressed because of urbanization. But despite that, we need proper urbanization, we need planning, we need our city to be planned and structured well. We don't really need slums. We really need to see how to do away with things like slums, homeless in the cities. Yeah, urbanization, if you look at critically, it really helps the economy. Like by 2050, you'll see countries like Nigeria. Lagos will be one of the biggest metropolis in the world, whereby it's projected to have around 35 million people. So in a city like Lagos, it's projected to be the 5th biggest city come 2050. 5th biggest city in the world, with around 32 to 35 million people. A city like Kinshasa is projected to be the 7th biggest city in the world in terms of population come 2050, with about 30 million people. And this, as much as I'm saying this, it needs to be done in a proper way because of planning and stuff, but urbanization really improves the spending and the economic activities of a given country, regardless of how you want to look at it. We need to still keep our farmland. We need to still farm. But at the end of the day, we need a bigger population in the city so that we can have proper land for harvest, for farm. Guys, those are my 5 key points of why Africa is going to be the future. There are so many points I couldn't mention, but I prefer to start with the first 5. If you have other points, please put down in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button. And I know if you have a discerning or different opinion, you're really welcomed. Still put it in the comment section below. And if you're thinking, do I come to invest in Africa? Is it the right time? I would tell you, there's no better time to invest in Africa like right now. If you're planning today probably to invest in the continent, let's say $2,000 or $20,000, if you have that capacity to invest right now and you are delaying when the continent, take off, by the time you want to come and invest, you'll be talking about, if you're planning to invest $2,000, you'll be talking about $20,000. If you're planning to invest $20,000, you'll be talking about $2 million. The investment, the platform will be different, will be on a different. If you're out there, this is the time. We'll tell you, don't waste time. Come to the continent, connect with it. And countries are different. Don't go to one country and believe that is Africa. If, let's say, you went to South Africa the first time and went to Nigeria the second time, go to Ghana the third, come to Kenya, come to Rwanda, come to Ethiopia, go to different places and you'll connect differently with each country. We are not the same. We are one people, but we have different culture, tradition, way of doing things, and we need to explore this. And I'm encouraging you to come to the continent. And from me, I would say,